Bob.
Hello, all. We are doing our second encore performance here of Messy Data Horror Stories. Bring your own and share, or we have ours as well. We're here with Oz, Mr. Oz Excel, who co-wrote a book with Mr. Excel, the book being Guerrilla Data Analysis using Microsoft Excel's second edition. And someone here tonight is going to win that book. Not a Kindle version, but that book, which would cost you at least $13 used or $25 new on eBay. I mean, not eBay, on Amazon plus shipping.
And it won't be signed.
There you go. And signed. Again, it won't be signed.
This one will be signed.
Well, last show, it took us 10 minutes to get somebody to say they wanted the book. And look, we already have somebody there raising their hand in the chat there. So I'm Bob King, Sub Bob, which is for Submarine Bob. I help people solve problems. I help people focus on their core competencies by improving their work processes through automation and better processes. And my guest tonight is Oz, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Oz du Soleil. I am 5'4" of a terrifying force on crap data. I'm whooping this ass from sunrise to sunset. An evangelist for clean data. Whatever your tool is, my tool happens to be Excel. But I don't care what your tool is, as long as you join this fight of whooping crap data's ass and ending the unnecessary misery associated with crap data. And I'm here in Portland, Oregon, and I'm having a good time here with Bob. All right.
And we're going to come back to this quote here from Bill Gates. And I looked, I did not dig all the way down to ensure that it came from him, but it was all over the place that it had come from him. So I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. But the big thing from this is that when you automate an inefficient operation, you just magnify the inefficiency. Mm-hmm. And, we've probably all seen that at one time or another where there's a broken system, it's bad. And without going back to the root cause, without redesigning it, someone just says, well, let's speed it up. Right. Let's see if we can make it, automate it. And if it's built on a bad foundation, you have to fix the foundation. It's like when you hear people say, I don't have time to plan. Right.
Right.
So
just get in and just start doing stuff.
So looking at that example, I'm going to take this out of here, but magnifying the inefficiency. I know I've heard, and this is the encore performance. We're going to share some different stories here than the earlier one. If you want to catch that, the recording will be out there. So what's an example you've seen where even though the procedure was bad, the underlying process was bad, they insisted on not fixing it, but just trying to put a Band-Aid on it or automating it? Can you think of any?
Well, my mind goes in a lot of different directions with that, because a lot of times the real fix might be too expensive. And so you got hacky workarounds with things, reports that are obsolete. Well, if the offsite consultant is, $300 an hour and you're looking at a month of redoing a report, the answer might be no, figure something else out, do the Band-Aid thing. But situations where, I can see where I've experienced a lot of broken systems, but then there would be some workaround, something to account for that. And as always, a cost benefit analysis involved. Right. So, a true horror, things, I think when, especially with something like Excel, and a person doesn't ask, is there a better way?
Right.
Then there's a personal decision to keep mired in this painful way of doing things. The person who, wants to, drag and drop, learning how to set the data up and put it in a pivot table and be done and accurate. No learning, just drag stuff around, Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
Okay. So I looked prior to tonight's session. I was like, what else is out there? You hear bad data, you hear messy data. I mean, even back when I got my computer engineering degree, there was a big emphasis on the difference between data and information. If you recall that whole mantra and talk, data is everything that's just out there disorganized. And once you put it together in different formats, then data becomes information, right? So I'm going to share something here from a presentation that's out on SlideShare. And to give due credit to this person, I'm putting the link in there for where it's coming from. But this was an interesting thing. And again, I'm taking this at face value. I've not verified any of this myself, but it just shows you some examples of what we're talking about when we say bad data, because that came up earlier in our first one was, what do you mean when you say bad data or messy data? So I thought that this slide here might be a talking point either for us or the people here and the viewers, because as we mentioned, this is bring your own story.
Not an or, but an and.
Yeah,
because,
and exactly.
We got to get some people in here.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So George, I know George earlier today, he wanted to come in and he wasn't able to. So George, when you're ready, we're not doing this like we're going to talk for 30 minutes and then people can come in. The seat is open.
Yes,
this
it is.
Bring your own and share. So if someone has something they want to add to this conversation, maybe this slide right here will jog some memory of when you've had duplicate data or outdated or typos or whatever the case might be.
That is an excellent slide. And I tell you what, I got in here early and I started warming up that seat. So don't worry about it being cold. Just come on in. All right. So yeah, this slide, I like it because it does. Is it asking for a call?
Yeah, George here. Yeah.
Oh man.
Hey, we have him. Can we hear him? And we can hear him too. It works.
George is here.
I'm actually on a Mac this time.
Okay.
I don't know if that's better, but it worked. So
awesome. And this is your first call in then? Amblab, the first time.
My first time on a Blab.
Awesome. So let's give George some props here. Happy to have you as your first time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's right. Yeah. So I like this slide because it does summarize a lot of the things that do make data, what I call crap data. But a big thing is to accept that data is never 100% clean. The issue is getting a sense of what is clean enough.
Right.
I definitely agree. I think that you can get into big problems if you want data to be a perfect mirror of reality, right? I like the analogy of kind of looking at data as like a pair of glasses, right? So you want to look through it and make observations about the world and analyze it. So using it instead of, looking at the frames, what are these made out of? Is this lens going to break? Is that going to hold? So using it for something instead of it becoming kind of an object in and of itself. I see that so much at my workplace. And when I saw this topic, I knew I had to jump in. So this is great.
Yeah.
And I know I know earlier today, you definitely had, when you wanted to get in, I don't know if you recall, it's been 8 hours and a lot has happened for all of us in between then. When at that time, do you recall what it was you wanted, or was it just in general? I mean, did you have something like, it's like burning that you wanted to share or at the time?
Well, I think the one thing is that, and you kind of got into this a little bit about having some logic to your data. Right. I see this a lot, and we got into it a little bit tonight, but if you don't have a good sense of how your data works and you're just putting things into a nice dashboard because it looks pretty, you're going to get in big trouble because it's really going on at my workplace a lot, and I see it a lot, is that management doesn't really understand the huge problem that kind of data wrangling takes. We all know that that's a majority of an analyst's time. So when you bring in the consultants or whomever to come up with a dashboard or something, that's really, that's the easy part, right? Like we all learned statistics in school. We all learned a little bit of like visualization. really the part that becomes the challenge is how do you prepare the data? How do you load the data? If you don't answer that first, then it doesn't matter, the most hot golly data visualization software isn't going to do the trick for you.
Preach, brother, preach.
A lot going on at so many places. So that's really one of the things that I wanted to get off my chest tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, and hey, and we're ready to deal with it. Because I tell you, you're talking about like how the data works. I want to know what you mean about that. And what that sounds like to me is developing a relationship with the data, of understanding where does it get bad? Where can you change a process? Where can you do something about it? But it can take a while to develop that relationship to, know where the bodies are.
Hey, Robert, we have Robert here. Now, Robert's in South Carolina, and George, you don't have to. Do you mind telling us where you're from?
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Ohio? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, it was difficult to see that graphic without my magnifying glass. My old eyes just have trouble in that small a font. But what I didn't see there was what kind of degrees of freedom any data had, any statistical measure of accuracy of the data, and that's what I find lacking in so much of what I have to deal with on a describing quality of data. Unless you have some variance measure, do I not have audio?
No, you do.
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oz squirreled me. He told Robin that he was wearing her husband's shirt, and
I'm listening to your sermon, man. Let's just keep going.
Yeah. So Robert, and I want to come, and we'll come back to George too, and give George a chance to introduce himself and say, where you work, what you do. But Robert, can you explain on the lead side of your I know you have your hands in different things, but how this quality of data affects that? Go ahead, Oz.
Well, okay. So just want to kind of rein things in here. So I'd ask George about what he meant about
Go ahead.
Understanding how data works, and then let's get to Robert.
Okay. I'm good.
Oh, do I go now? Okay. So so like Oz, mostly work in Excel. That's how I met Oz, is Excel blogging, stuff like that. Really, by what I meant of kind of understanding your data is kind of thinking about the building blocks of your data, where it's coming from, how to put some logic into it, because, if you're asking for one thing, but you really mean the other, that's where you get into trouble with a lot of this. So that's kind of generally, trying to think about your data in useful ways that, it's sustainable, that you can, it's malleable. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, especially within Excel. Like I mentioned in the earlier session, I'm still getting data from like paper charts and calendars. And I'm trying to, move people into a more sustainable data solution. So that's kind of where I'm coming from for this talk.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. And Robert.
George, what you just described there is a mechanical difference, or a mechanical description of the difference between the analog mindset and the digital mindset that society is going through right now. A lot of the baby boomers my age that are out there wanting to do business don't realize that everybody is looking right here for all their purchasing decisions, and so that digital data there, which is represented by on-off indicator and multiples of that, is a lot different than looking at the chart strip or pin strips that you're talking about, which are the old analog recorders, and so this whole transition from analog to digital, society is grappling with, and I've building a business around that for salespeople that are looking for leads that historically they've gotten from mailers, from billboard call-ins, from so on and so forth, postcards, that kind of thing, flyers, or newspaper inserts, and now it's all coming off of funnel pages and so forth, and being nurtured, so that you can discern
one
buying
thing,
behavior.
I talked with a guy
rather
at
than
a
just
nonprofit
browsing.
who said that they had a mail campaign, and say they broke even. Say you spent $5,000 with all his mailers and envelopes and postage and stuff, and then $5,000 comes back in the mail. But then he said that when he looked at the entire campaign, the mailing was like an excellent initial contact, because they then saw that most people, they got the mail, but then they went online and made their donation. So it was important to bring all of that together. It was fascinating, because he said they were on a path to just say to hell with this mail and stuff. It was a hassle and we didn't make any money on it.
Well, everybody is so inundated or gotten used to the fact that you get a little postcard in the mail and they don't even look at it anymore. They just throw it in the trash can. So your response rate is very, very low. Out of 10,000 mailers, it's common to get
now it is a low response rate. But what he discovered
response
was that the people with the nonprofits constituents, they did pay attention to that mailer, but they went online and made their donation. So he had to put all of that together once he got all of the data and not just the mail related data. But that was the nonprofit, and that's a whole different thing from just like a direct mail campaign. With a nonprofit, you're likely dealing with people who you've dealt with before. Yeah,
all
people
right.
who already like you.
I needed to say, so I'm going to log off and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, and Phil.
Okay, well, thanks, George.
Yeah,
you're welcome to.
Jorge, glad.
A
Thanks,
regular
George.
feature for you, Bob?
Right now, well, regularly as in I'm around a lot, not regularly as I've scheduled my own. So I don't have any regularly scheduled times or anything, but I'm working on more helping others. So I jump into other shows. I'm also doing I'm scheduling some where I create opportunities for other people to show on air how they help a client. Like Georgia from the UK, who was on here earlier today, she has a business where she fixes people's resumes, fixes their LinkedIn profiles, and then applies for them to 20 jobs, including cover letters. And so we're going to do a blab where she does that for a person on air. That way people can see what she does and better understand what she does. And then also, so I'm going to be doing that for myself too, so that people can have a better understanding of what I do.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you, Oz, for letting me know about this.
Yeah.
And I really like that digital analog analogy, Robert. So I'll be feeling. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Good night.
And your digital and Robert, your digital analog analogy we might have to kick you, George. There's been okay. Just so people know, if we do kick somebody out, sometimes it's because people have been having problems leaving the seat on their own. And it's not their side, it's a blab technical thing. Your analog digital example, Robert, reminded me of a situation that occurred on my submarines well in the early 90s and continued, on both subs. And one thing is I always talk about the importance and the criticality of asking the question why, because it's the most powerful question in the English language. So the deal is you leave an organization and they have a recall roster, right? Every organization has these one, even civilian businesses, right? Something happens, they need to get hold of people. And you get there, they give you back in the day, they gave you a blank form and you filled it out. You know, they had all the fields and everything. And then somebody hand jammed that into Excel or a Word document, or right. Often it wasn't Excel, often it was a Word document. So there was no data integrity, right? And then when you left, you had to start it all over at the next place. Now we didn't have the internet so much then. We didn't have thumb drives, but we did have these things called floppy disks, right? And so I proposed to our captain, the XO, and the ship's yeoman. I said, well, why don't we put the person's record on this disk so they can take it to their next command? They don't have to hand jam it, and you don't get the data lost over time, because it's like playing the telephone game, right? Every time you tell someone the data, it changes.
Yeah.
What was their response?
Yeah.
Any guesses? Either you or anybody in the chat? Never done it before. What else? What were their concerns?
What if they lose the disk?
Their biggest concern was, what if they change it? What if they change it? Well, if you give it to them on a disk, they could go in there and they could edit it.
Oh.
But here's the thing: if you didn't give them a disk, they were filling out the freaking form when they got to the next place anyway. So they were the ones that were writing the data down.
Yeah.
But rather than recognize they could just write down false information, they said, well, they could just go in and edit it. I'm like, well, they could just give you false information when they fill out the form. But that didn't compute. Having a person fill out a form was more legitimate than a disk.
One of the along with the title, one of the horror stories that I wrestled with during my career was back in the mid '80s. I was the manager of emergency preparedness at Rancho Seco nuclear power plant near Sacramento, California. And one of the issues that was real difficult to deal with in that was that the Central Valley of California in the summer has very strong inversion layers in the atmosphere, and at low altitude, say 100 to 200 feet above ground, there's next to no air movement during some of these inversion patterns, but there is some gusting or wispy wind currents that happen at times, and I was part of the emergency response system was, having accurate meteorological instrumentation and so forth, and so because of this particular atmospheric conditions that we would get in, what the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, was trying to achieve in their regulations was exceeding the capacity of any known instrumentation at the time. And they just couldn't get it through their heads that, if you've got an analog anemometer up there that is, just fluctuating within 5 degrees once in a while, and then converting that analog to a digital signal, the variance within that pattern was more than could be resolved, and it just was it was a cluster.
Yes. Absolutely. I got it. I'm trying to find a good map that I can use, and I guess this is about the best one. So I'm just working right now. George, Robert, you just reminded me of something that this is a messy data horror story, because this could have gone really, really bad. So, picture.
Good night, George.
Okay, thanks.
He just mentioned good night over there.
So I'm going to use this new screen sharing feature here. All right. The situation is I'm on a ballistic missile submarine in the late 90s. And I'm the navigator and operations officer. And we had, for one reason or another, we had to do what's called a humevac or a medevac. Something happened. Either a sailor got hurt, or most of the ones typically happen. A sailor's family, immediate family, had died or was in.
That's not a
so we would get them off the ship if we could.
Bob.
So,
okay, all right, good, all right.
That is not a classified chart. That is a best chart I could find.
I'm
on short notice.
Let Robert in, because I went to nuclear powers. No, right. Well, I'm gonna tell Robert that I went to nuclear power school, and Bob went to nuclear power school. Bob actually taught it, so I have some idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to use some color here. I don't know if the color will show up. I'll do as best I can. But let's just say that this black dot was where the tug was going to be coming out, or the small boat. I'm not talking about a small boat, because they come out to us and we transfer the person to the small boat. So they were going to come out here, and this was going to be the transfer point, right? And this blue line, we're coming in like this, and then we're going to cut over like that, and we're going to meet that person. And we're doing this, and we're on radio contact with this small boat, and they kept saying, they're like, we're at the point, we don't see you, and we're like, we're there, we should be able to see you, and it's going. Well, my QMs, my quartermasters, and my navigation electronic technicians, they had this little clear piece of plastic that they use for plotting the points. They had the latitude and longitude and everything marked on it, and when we shifted the chart, instead of being here, they laid the chart in the wrong direction, and they plotted us here. Man. So we're paralleling this thing like this. All the way along the way, we're like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 yards off from where we're supposed to be, and no one catches it. There's so many checks and balances, but no one was checking it. No one caught it, because everybody checking it was using the same little piece of plastic that guy had made that had something wrong on it. Right now, as it turned out, we were just delayed. It just took us. We just cut in here and we got them right. But here's the messy data horror story. Here's the oh shit. If we'd have gone this way, you'd have heard about it, because the water wasn't deep enough. Okay, this was not. We got lucky by design. This was we got lucky because we got lucky. It could have been a flip of a coin. Now, if it had gone that other way, things would have happened. We'd have started getting. We have a depth sounder, right? And the depth soundings would have started being shallower than they were supposed to be. But over here, they were a little deeper than this was. And you can imagine we had a huge after-action report and critique about this. Okay, right, and and as one of the things was, the water out here was deeper than the water here, but the sounding 80 fathoms checks with chart. The guy says, well, it didn't really check with the chart. But it was close enough that there were so many people. There were like 12, 15 people.
That you're talking to man, because I was a quartermaster. And we had ESGN, we had the depth sounder, and then I have to calculate for the tides and currents. So there was a whole lot of data there going on.
And I got to tell you, as the navigator, and by the way, it was my first patrol as the navigator. I was very happy that I got my job. Nothing bad happened, but the potential was it could have, right?
Yeah.
Now, that is a messy data horror story. Okay. Although I hadn't thought about that. Again, and this is what happens when people come together like this. I haven't thought of that story in a long time. And now it's recorded. It's tweeted. I didn't say the name of the submarine. I guess people could figure it out. But outside of the submarine, I don't think anybody else has ever heard that story before. I don't think my wife knows that story.
You have me think about, going through the Suez Canal, and you got to go slow. It's narrow, and it takes 3 days to get through there. And then you have people on his navigation party, and we have to get fixes. And so, where this the edge of the red barn, and then this antenna, and then this store back here. And the fixes have to be configured in a certain way. You can't get 3 fixes that are all off in this direction, and it was like, okay, take a round, boom, alpha 010, doom. Okay, and now you got this big old triangle. That is not going to work. You got to take another round before you wind up on the rocks.
Yeah. And so, as we said, we didn't say it so much in this blab yet. We mentioned it in the one that we did at noon. Is notice we don't have the term. We're with Mr. Oz Excel here. We're giving away an Excel book, but we don't have Excel in the title, and we're not just talking about Excel. We're not talking about one tool. We are talking about,
and Robin's talking about
data.
war games. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Robin's
yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to play
a
game?
Everybody, stand by. Take a round. And then you got the protracted air, boom, and the C's are going and calculating and change the direction. Yeah.
This one's bigger. So here's the.
Oh, okay. All right.
We'll get off the submarine navigation thing after this, but Oz's but Oz, your thing about that story and the taking the round. So I'm on these submarines. We went out for like 70 days at a time, and if we really wanted to talk about the importance of not having messy data, we could talk about my missile system and the targeting, but we're not going to talk about that. Okay, but we ain't gonna. That's all I'm going to say about that. So this is the chart coming into Kings Bay, Georgia. All right, I'm going to put the over here. If you can see my cursor moving around a little. Was where the submarines had to go. This was the Gulf Stream. Our ship is 600 feet long, 576 feet long.
Information.
And it had a 42.
No, it's not okay. All right.
It's not. No. And neither is the keel depth. It was 40. If the water was 41 and a half feet deep, so the pit sword, the little thing that says how fast you're going through the water, would break off. So we needed at least 42 feet. Each side of this channel right here was not 42 feet. And when we were there, we only had about 40 yards each side of us. The importance of that is if you are even like 10 degrees either side in the channel, one end of the ship is outside the channel because it's so long, triangle geometry, right? Well, you're coming along, you've got the Gulf Stream. Well, then the Gulf Stream goes away. So if you've been you have to correct for the Gulf Stream because it's vector math. Mm-hmm. Then it goes away and you have to turn back quick. And as you come in along here, you have all these rivers, and it's a mixing bowl, and you never know from one day to the next what's going to be happening with these eddy currents. And if I had drawn a chart on this, along in here, we had these little they call them dog leg turns.
Yes.
One of them, there you go, Robin. One of them was only 150 yards long, right? So the length of the route was less than half of the ship. So, this wasn't so much a series of turns as it was a controlled crash around a curve, right? I mean, and keeping track of where it was. That 20, 30 minutes right there was the tightest I ever was on every time.
And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of controlled crashes that I've found in working with data. Is because data is never 100% clean. Right. It's constantly moving. And so then, like with the commissions, I had this guy, the guy who mentored me, Thomas Fang, told me data is only good as of now. That's all. Because, 10 seconds later, something's going on that could impact the past. So with calculating the commissions, this month, I would calculate all the way back to the start of the year. when we get to December, I always calculate back to the start of the year because there's always something. And that's what you remind me of when you talk about a controlled crash.
Yeah. And on the data, I put it there in chat. Here's the data that we had to do. And of course, Oz knows the core manager. You have noticed the mariners, which tells you whether buoys have moved or not. You have the currents, the tides, the time of day. Yep. When was the channel last dredged? I mean, the data. So I want to bring it back to the topic here. There's so much data there.
One that broke loose.
Some analog.
Yeah.
Yep. And so.
What you may not have had was the fact that that river basin had 5 inches of rain in the upper reaches of the watershed, and that current from there wasn't known to be coming down or couldn't be updated in time.
One of the only times I know of that a submarine has gone aground, and I mean this was a minor one, but down in Cape Canaveral, when we would have to do test missile shots. We would go off Cape Canaveral and they would do stuff to the missile to make sure there was not anything on the actual top of it before we launched it, and then they would instrument it and track it and everything. Well, one of the ships was going in there and they ran aground, but they were in the channel, they were in the area that was supposed to be dredged, and it hadn't been dredged. Well, that was a case where it was one of the few cases I know of where there was absolutely there was no responsibility on the part of the ship because they were told that, the channel was deep enough. Everything, I mean, they were exactly where they were supposed to be and had done everything right. But that's one of the few times. Yeah. Robin or Ashley or anybody else that's out there, would you like to come in? I'm trying to bait Ashers into coming because she just started a job this week where she's working with Excel, inputting data.
Sweet Excel.
I'm
sweet.
Hey, Smoky Mountain. Yeah.
Just bump me whenever you take me off, Bob.
What's
got somebody,
Robert, in your in your lawyer days, any examples you can think of that you can talk about, that's not NDAs or anything, or even in general terms where bad data comes into play?
Let me stew on it for a few minutes.
One thing I have talked with lawyers,
is not coming to me,
they haven't hired me to do this, but I've talked with several who've said, like in divorce cases, they will get financials from the other party and it's in PDFs and it's on paper and it's in spreadsheets and don't know how to bring all that stuff together. And I said, I can see a way of bringing all of that stuff together, out of the PayPal and out of the bank and wherever else is coming from, bring all that stuff together. And it seems like it's deliberate to be all a mess. I talked with a reporter back in Chicago who was trying to get data out of the Chicago public school system because they're always talking about schools need to be closed and performance and blah, blah, blah. And this reporter was like, I'd like to see this data and I have a right to it. Well, she fought and the school system dragged their feet and finally they send the data. Of course, it's a mess and probably purposefully a mess. And that's where I say, when you learn how to work with raw ass data, you got power. But if you're waiting, need somebody else to put it into a report, you're at the mercy of when and if they'll get it into a report.
While we're waiting for Ashley or anybody else that may want to come in, here's the thing. I tell folks every once in a while there's things that make sense in my mind and they don't make sense to anyone else, and that's fine. I can accept that, and I've learned after 50 years that happens. 50 years. Last year I took a course. I'm going to blow this up in a second, Robert, because I know it's an eye chart right now. Last year I took a course on mass media and communications, and in there one of the things we looked at was called the transmission model of communications, and this is kind of like the telephone game, but with more pieces. So can you see that, Robert? Okay.
Yeah. That's good.
So on the sender side, right? the sender is sending a message, has this message, and then the encode and decode. Is it text? You have your thoughts, right? Maybe someone has dyslexia, or maybe they're speaking a different language, right? And then, so there's a signal that goes out, and it has to go out in some channel, right? And that channel can have noise and feedback. It might go through a bunch of relays. It might even be like a bad video, then. Yeah.
Or in fact, the sender receiver may have some environmental conditions that are.
And then the decode and decode. So reception. I mean, and this isn't the best one. The one that was in the textbook, I've not been able to find. It's like it's a proprietary one, and it showed more. But that one showed, like you said, that environmental. Each person has things, a kid crying. They're driving, and if they're driving, they shouldn't be in the model, right? But they are anyway. Or traffic noise. Or maybe it's just they had a really bad day at work, or what the person is talking about. So Anne, I apologize if you watch this in the replay. My wife went to the store today. She came back and she was upset, and I had no idea why. And a few hours later, my son comes to me and said, "Dad, I found out afterwards they'd already had the flowers out for Memorial Day, and my father-in-law passed away in June. Not June this year, but June years ago. But it's close to his birthday, and so that was a trigger of a memory. Well, I didn't know that. So all of a sudden, we're talking, and it's like there's something on her receiver model that I'm not aware of. Right? Well, the reason I bring this up and to try to see if it ties to this messy data horror stories is, can we take this model, and this is where I say, is it too much of a stretch to say that whether it's the forms or the paper or where the data comes from, is this applicable, or am I comparing apples and tigers?
It's very applicable. Let me ask you guys, why in the course of your sub experience were you required to use specific procedures in manuals?
Now I served in subs. You served in
What's the basis of requiring employees or personnel to utilize a systematized approach?
One big reason is you don't have enough time to go figure stuff out, and you can't call some repair person. You got to figure stuff out. If a fire happens, you got automatic actions to take. You can't be thinking.
Well, that's close, but
I didn't know you were asking you a trick question.
The underlying basis of that is
okay. I didn't know
eliminate variation, right?
Yeah.
So that employee 1 and employee 2 and employee 5 are doing as close approximation to the same thing as possible, and you eliminate variance from the system. That elimination of variance ensures quality of the data that management has to make management decisions.
And on the subs, and I'm on the surface ships too in the Navy, we had what was called preventive maintenance system, right? And if they would have really thought about this harder, they would have come up with a better term for that overall system, because PMS means different things to different people. But anyway, it was PMS. And so several times as an officer, like several times a week, I was required to monitor a procedure. It might be changing the oil in the diesel generator. It might be aligning an electronic circuit. And you had a checklist, and you had a copy of the procedure, and you made sure that they were not just that they were doing it, following the steps, but if it said that it was supposed to be a 6-inch long, 1/2-inch box wrench, they can't use channel locks. They can't use a crescent wrench. It's got to be that tool, right? And so not only did you have the procedures, but you monitored it and ensured that they were being followed accordingly as well.
Yeah. But now,
validation and verification.
I got a question
steps.
for Robert after he sucked me into his trick question. See, anyway.
No, it wasn't a trick. The truth of the matter is that I think Bob knows this because I shared it with him previously. Is that I'm a certified associate ergonomist, and part of this discussion relates to human performance and human factors.
So here's my question: is
analytics?
We talked about this in the previous session about when something changes. How does the change get to the right person? And the issue being, we've got the report, and you've got somebody in customer service who's supposed to do something once a month based on this procedure. But management changes a business rule, and it doesn't get to the person who's got this 10-year-old laminated file, and they keep doing stuff, and then calls come in complaining, and they apologize and they fix it, and then next month same thing. So
well, large engineering outfits have what's called management of change processes, and there's actual manuals and so forth. The nuclear power industry is very much like the nuclear Navy, because that's where all the retired Navy guys kind of went, you know. And you know, so the control of confirmation of equipment and human interaction with that equipment, you know, is all managed by a management of change procedure or manual. And that has its own verification and validation processes in confirming that, you know, there's all the manuals have the requisite revs of each procedure and so on and so forth. And training has been done on each of those.
Yes.
You know, we have Ashley calling in here. You know, I put in there there was an actual. Sometimes people say, "Well, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense," and so they have that change request form.
I know who this is.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
There you go. Yeah. Hey.
Hi. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Ashley with the owls.
Oh my goodness.
I don't think I've met you. Hi, I'm Rob.
Yeah. Oh. So Ashley, tell us again. I didn't want you to, I don't know because I don't know what your company's policy is. I don't want to mention the specific name or anything.
In general,
can you describe in general what it is you're doing at this new job you started?
Okay. There's more than one type of company like this. So basically, I take all of the citations for rental cars. So say you went out and rented a car and you ran tolls and red lights and you decided to go Willy Wonkers. I get those pictures and I put the citations from everybody, and I put that into an Excel spreadsheet, and then we upload it so that we can charge whoever is going to charge it.
Wow.
And you had mentioned to me that there was like another level up where you were like, you have to,
tickets that we
people
get,
have to start looking up missing information.
It's really important that we have a time for when the violation happened, because you can have more than one rental in a day. So if we don't have that, then we run into a problem. If we don't have the state for the license plate, we can't figure out which car it is. So sometimes
this is beautiful.
Yeah.
You see why I wanted to come in on
the thing is, and what Robert is talking about, because I'm so tired of talking about Excel and budgets and finance and accounting, but all of this stuff is data, and it's beautiful, and it's got its own types of challenges. And I want to hear more what Ashley has to say here.
What was it? Robert.
I've got a quick question. I don't know whether the data is broad enough. But the thing that immediately came to my mind is can you tell regionally, or like, for example, is there bad behavior more apt to occur
not really.
in Vegas?
You'd be surprised
or
how many
Long Beach
3 a.m. red lights are ran in Iowa. Like, it's just random. Yeah.
that was almost a direct quote. She's like, I can't believe how many people run red lights between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning. It's like, and going back to that why thing, right? A friend of mine that was a medical director at a General Motors plant. So the thing is they're there to help keep people working, but also to take care of, like, make sure they're in compliance with OSHA and all that. Well, if they have an OSHA violation, it's huge. It's like $5,000, $10,000, right, per violation. But every day every day they had daily meetings, and every week they had weekly, they had the weekly meetings, and the plant manager would be, how many OSHA violations would we have? And he'd have this guy go through them one at a time and say, well, is that really a violation? Is that a cut, or was that just a scratch? Because if it's a scratch, we don't have to report it, right? And there's no penalty for reporting them. It's like there's no as long as you report it, it's okay. But if you find when you don't report, you get fined. And the thing is, they found a plant that was out in South Carolina that had been, like, everything was down to, and it just happened to be South Carolina, Robert. I just realized that. But everything was, it was like their numbers were lower than any other plant in the U.S. And he dug into their statistics and found out that they'd been cooking the books. And they flew him to Detroit. He had to talk about it with the overall General Motors medical person and all that. But I said, Jesse, here's the thing. The plant manager's performance was tied to the number of violations. So the plant manager was being motivated to reduce the number of violations. But for the company, having violations that weren't reported would cost them money. So they had two different mechanics that were at odds with each other, that were not in the best interest of the company.
Wow.
Right?
That's
and
right.
What made me think about that is take Ashley. It's like the other day she said, I entered 100. Her second day, it's like I entered 112 tickets before lunch, right? And I've not spoken with her about what her metrics are there or anything. But imagine if this company has a metric on how many you enter.
We do.
But they're also concerned about data quality, right?
Yeah.
You get where I'm going with this, right? I mean, they're like, well, how many? Well, I entered 1,000. 800 of them were wrong, but
that's
I entered more than the
centers.
other person.
That's call centers. Looking at how many calls that you answered in a day, but how many people did you help?
Exactly.
How many people are waiting for you to call them back, and you're not going to call them back because you're getting the award for answering the most calls in a day.
That was my last job. I worked for a rental truck company.
Go ahead and tell him.
And that was our metric: is how many calls did you have to take a day? How long was your call? Was it under 3 minutes? And did you resolve that person's issue? No call in my 5 years ever lasted under 3 minutes. Like, that just doesn't happen. And then they based. Don't get me started.
You're gonna set my stomach. Yeah. You're gonna set my stomach to gurgling.
And on top of everything else, then we had to send out emails if there was a problem, and then we had to respond within 2 hours if that email wasn't answered. But by the time that email was I'm like,
and something.
4 to 5 hours.
I had to do some research for my director, and he said he wanted a different phone system, and he had me do research, and the marketing around call center phone systems are, your employees are bad, they're evil, they make personal calls, they stall between calls, and you need our system that'll keep pounding calls down their throats. Lord, I mean, it's like you need to be contemptuous of your own people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man.
So I use this. I'm reusing a story from last week when we were talking about how companies can implement a Google-like culture, right? Empower their employees. And about 10 years ago, and it's within a couple of years, right? But a divisional head of a Best Buy call center told his employees, he said, you know what? You're accepting calls and you're helping people, But all you have to do is talk to him on the phone. So I don't care whether you're in the office or not. All I care is that you're meeting your quotas, that you're getting it done. So he gave his employees carte blanche to just make sure you were reachable. You can be anywhere. And in the course of a couple of months, people in his division were literally on the beach in Florida and the Bahamas taking calls. Right? I mean, they're sunning themselves on the beach, answering calls, anywhere, doing it from home, whatever the case might be. By every single metric the company cared about, number of customers dealt with, length of calls, customer satisfaction, they blew this. They were like head and shoulders above every other division within Best Buy that was doing that same thing. So what happened?
His boss came in and fussed at him.
Pretty much. The company found out about it and said, that's against company policy. You have to be in the office. Even though by every metric they cared about, again, it goes back to that. They had a policy that was at odds with what they wanted to achieve. Every metric they cared about, that plan blew the limit out. But they cared more about their policy than their goals. And this is
why I think these conversations are important, is because, complex Excel, tips, they don't matter when you have a context like this. And
yeah. Well, a point to that, Bob, is that you drew the analogy of the competing incentives. Well, you've got competing disincentives in that situation where I could see that would drive the manager of safety and environmental and health absolutely bat crazy, because and general counsel crazy, because if you have a 1,000 analysts that are on the beach or in the mountains responding on their cell phones, they're working, and if they have an injury or whatever, that's a workers' comp claim, and their exposure just went,
I can see that,
astronomical.
It's an excellent point.
Yeah, and it's a good point, and all the times and that's the thing. That's again why bringing people together like this, you think of these things that are like, never didn't think about that other possibility. Even like I did a lot of offsites when I taught at the college, where I told them, I said, I'll do one as often as once a week, but you guys have to set it up. And we would go. Sometimes we'd have class in the Cabela's conference room, right? And it was all fine. We could do it, but there was, again, from the military perspective, well, you're telling them you're telling your students they have to be at the Cabela's conference room. So what happens if one of them, if they're on the way and all that, and there's procedures for that. Well, they're not doing them as much anymore, because about 3 years ago, they did one on the other side of Kansas City, and one of the yahoos in the class, and I almost said jackass, but I'll say yahoo, and I said jackass anyway, twice. All right. But one of the jackasses in the class, he said, everybody said, we're going to do this. And he came back, and afterwards, he filed a travel claim to get the mileage going 40 miles each direction. And when it came said to done, the lawyers in the room, right, in the process said he's justified. They said he had to be there, so you told him he had to be there, so he had to drive his own car, so he's eligible to file that claim. So that then essentially shut down the ability for anybody else in the college for years after that to get out and do these offsites, which really changed the learning experience. But anyway, I was thinking I was hoping they would have had a blanket party, but
no. Yeah, you said blanket party.
Did I say that? Is that my outer voice?
Y'all know about a blanket party? No. Oh man.
No.
Have you seen? Well, they probably haven't seen the movie Bad Boys with Sean Penn either. But
you get some people. Somebody's in their bed, and then you get some people to hold them down under the blanket, and then beat them with shoes and stuff. Yeah.
Essentially, just teach them not to be a jerk.
It's, people taking care of their own.
But that doesn't happen anymore.
Like, we can write you up and send you the captain's mast, or we can do this. Anyway.
And without getting, again, I want to ensure, I told Ashley, I don't want to get anything that's like talking proprietary, but as she was doing that, I'm got that data hat on, and I'm thinking, okay, so she's got this paper ticket, or she's got this picture, and she's putting it in. Where's the double checks? Where's the verifications?
Like a triple
what's the process? Because because it's and then I guess you, Robert, as a lawyer, you can imagine how all those things could get challenged, right? If someone wants to fight it, I mean.
But I like to.
I used to use some of that
because I made mistakes with the data, and they were embarrassing when they surfaced. But it also showed me that the process was working, that things did get caught, and so I'd get over my embarrassment, and we'd keep on moving.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk about
yeah. Oh my gosh, we're at the hour. I just realized we're at the hour point already. Sorry.
Give the book away.
I lost track of time. Yeah, so hold that book up again.
He's frozen on mine too.
Yeah, I was frozen. I just refreshed because he had frozen. And I thought it was me.
I think he's going to come back here in a moment.
I need it.
I'm going to. I'm going to put the link in for those people that are watching this on the replay, or those here as well now. I'm going to re-put in the link for the book we're talking about. Excuse me. So this book is Guerrilla Data Analysis using Microsoft Excel, 2nd edition. And the first edition was by Bill. Is it Jell? I think it's Bill Jell, who Oz has mentioned is known as Mr. Excel, and then Oz is Oz Excel. So Bill asked Oz to co-write and essentially write most of the 2nd edition.
Getting back up.
And I just I see that he's having trouble right now. We'll get him in here. And so who else do we have here? So we've got Ashley, we have Alex. You got one thing going for you here, Ashley, and that is Alex, who is here, won the book at noon. Not at noon, but in the noon episode. So there's one less person for you to compete with. Robert, are you interested in the book? Oh, okay. And we still have to get a vote from Oz here, but I mean, I'm not eligible for it, and Oz is not eligible for it, so it's looking. So
yeah,
and it's signed. Were you in here when he said it's signed? So, all right,
yeah. So here we are.
See if we can make this work.
That's
here.
right.
Oh, there we go. There it is. Here's the book. The other thing, Oz, I realize is we didn't talk so much this episode about your status with Microsoft and the MVP.
It's the most valuable
tell us
professional.
What Microsoft MVP means.
Here is the glass award, and I got it for 2015 and 2016. It says, we recognize and value your exceptional contributions to technical communities worldwide. So it's not only showing some mastery of Excel, but also the creation of community, so, and here are my 2 awards.
How many of those are there in the Excel MVPs?
No, but it's real, but no.
I like that. Is that functional?
So there are 30 of us in the U.S. and 100 in the world. Yeah, so it's a small elite club, and it's a big deal because what it means is like having some influence on Excel. We get to communicate with the developers and getting stuck with something, finding some bug in Excel and being able to work with the developers rather than just go to some forum or sit and complain about it. It's a really good program. And as one of the program managers came on Excel TV and explained, is Microsoft is too big to help smaller businesses as nonprofits or the solopreneur. So they rely on the MVPs to help out in that area. And we're not Microsoft employees at all. They want that to be clear. And we're the eyes and ears out in the field looking at and seeing how people use Excel. And then we can relay it back to Microsoft and, see if it can be worked into the future. And I think some of the most recent developments with Excel, some things that have Excel working like a database, Power Query, Power Pivot, man, I think it's because they've seen that a lot of people don't have databases. They don't understand databases. If they do, they don't use it. So there's a lot that has that kind of functionality in Excel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure you're not an employee, but do they provide any kind of perks in lieu of compensation?
Yeah. There's, like a direct line with developers and, being able to see the future. And a lot of it, I can't talk about it. And some of it is exciting. And some things we say, well,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see where you're going with that one, right. Lots of NDAs.
NDAs,
but
right?
It's a beautiful thing. And some vendors, they'll provide things for MVPs, like Camtasia. Camtasia is a $300 software for video editing. So, VIPs are, we'll get a license. And then because a lot of us are developers, we can get, older versions of Windows or Excel or whatever for testing, Yeah.
Right. Now, I did drop, he mentioned Camtasia. I put in the link there to Oz's YouTube channel. He's been participating in a video vlog every day in April challenge. It's called Triple S Beta. And he's got some really interesting and unique videos out there. I like his teaching style, very entertaining. And in fact, you have your kick-ass hat handy?
Gentleman hat right here. Right.
Okay, there we go.
And then
he's got different hats he uses for the videos.
For when I had to do bull riding in the data. That's right. Yeah.
There we go.
I got other ones around here. I got a bunch, but this is
Yeah.
When you got it, when you get that raw data, when that raw data shows up, this is the hat you need, because now you got to walk to the chute and get up on that bull and hold on, because you don't know what's in that data.
So we've had a self-nomination for someone that's interested in the book, Ashley. Robert said he wasn't interested, and Alex already has one. Do you have? You think is Ashley get the book, or do you have another option here? I'm going to let you get the call. You're the one that's getting in the way.
Let me clarify that, Bob. I didn't say I wasn't interested. I said I deferred to Ashley.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Oh, he deferred. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I stand corrected from the bench. No,
so he seconded. Seconded the nomination. All right.
Yeah.
Ashley. All right, Ashley.
Right.
All right.
So Ashley. All right. And I'm gonna actually drop out of this for a moment, because I want to share. It's a short video. I want to share one of Oz's video, because the first session got to see this, and it's pretty cool. It's a short one.
Can you amp up the volume, Oz?
Let's see. Ah!
That's Camtasia. Okay, I mean, I'm he mentioned Camtasia. He makes his videos with Camtasia. And if you like that video, he's got a whole bunch more out there. And here's the other thing: for those of you watching now, for those of you that might catch it in the replay, his latest video, he went out and he asked everybody, "Look, I've got a week left of April videos to do. What would you like to see? What problems would you like me to solve? What things would you like me to talk about?" All right. So it's an open invite. He's right here. He's one of 30 Excel MVPs in the U.S. And he's asking you, what would you like to see? All right. So, all right. Yeah, there we go. Let's emphasize that. Okay.
See, that's data related. Why?
All right.
Right. I'm not going to show you a horse or a guinea hen. No, that's not related.
We're past our hour here. What we're going to do, and
Bob would like to see.
We're going to go around the horn here, starting with Robert this time. We're going to let you finish off last there, Oz. All right. We're going to start with Robert and give each one of you a chance. Say who you are, where people can find you, what you do, and Ashley, we want to hear about your owls. So.
Okay. I'm Robert Myers, found at Robert Myers JD on Twitter, on Snapchat, on Blab. I am helping small businesses transition from the analog mindset to the digital mindset, and providing data for those folks that can't or don't have the resources to outsource acquisition of sales leads and so forth. And so I'm helping that transition occur on an expedited basis so that we can all get eventually to the digital age.
Ashley?
I'm Ashley, or Ashers. I am creating a cartoon series of children's books called Oh My Fabulous Garden, and you can find me at OMFG Ashers on Twitter.
Thank you. I am Bob King, sub Bob, and I help small businesses, solopreneurs achieve their goals, whether those goals typically financial, but achieve their primary goals through becoming more effective and putting systems in place so that they can focus on what's important to them and their business and not having the computers make them do the work. So what I do is I tell people I make the computer work for you and not the other way around. And you can find me Sub Bob everywhere. You can talk to me. There's a Calendly link in my bio where you can sign up to have an initial consultation. Oz?
I'm Oz, and I'm an Excel MVP, an author, and I am committed to ending the unnecessary misery associated with crap data.